Sorry, folks. A little bit of a delay there in starting the stream because I didn't realize that you couldn't start this stream on Internet Explorer. I had to use Google Chrome, so you'll have to forgive me. I use the internet for a couple of things, some of them which I'm not willing to advertise on here, if you don't mind. But anyway, wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the United news making the headlines today. Some of them made the news yesterday, of course, Alexis Sanchez being one of them. This came out yesterday when most people in the UK were going to bed. It was in the middle of my evening here in Los Angeles. And, footballers are often accused of being out of touch with reality, with the real world. And a funny thing illustrates it, it's this. We're in the middle of a pandemic, millions of people losing their jobs, millions of people struggling, millions of people being evicted. And this guy, 25 minutes into your Manchester United career, you want to leave? You want to quit? I mean, when you take a look at any job situation, we've all been in shit jobs. We've all been in jobs we don't want to do. We've all been in jobs that get sicken the life out of us, but we do them. He plays for one of the biggest football clubs in the world, a dream of every young kid around the world. And he wants to leave in the first 20, 25 minutes. Honestly, if he genuinely said that to anyone at United, they should have binned him right then. They should have said, this guy's not right. I did an interview last week with Franz Hoek, and he was telling me when we would sign, when they would sign players with Louis van Gaal at Barcelona, sometimes he knew in the first week, just by a player's personality, whether they were going to make it or not. If Alexis Sanchez is that much of a card, that much of a I don't want to use the word, but you know what I'm talking about. This is unbelievable. 25 minutes, that's the resilience you have. You can't just say, well, you know what, maybe in a bad mood. Maybe something went wrong. Maybe just, anything can happen. If you make your mind up for 25 minutes that you want to quit somewhere, that is a dream job, you should have binned them right then. And what's interesting about it is, this is a guy making £500,000 a week. They're about best paid player at the football club. I'm quite certain anywhere over the last year and a half. If he came to United and said, you know what, let's cancel this contract with mutual consent, because he was costing United at this time with no return. They would have done it. They would have said, okay, no problem, it's fair enough. We get you off the books. You've no monetary value to us anyway. We swapped you for a player in Henrik Mkhitaryan, which we've long since amortized. So go. Right now, you're just a cost and an actual nuisance in the dressing room. And you can see why Solskjaer was so desperate to get him out. And one of the things that I've credited Solskjaer so much for is changing the environment in the dressing room. And this is an example of that. Getting someone like, how's it going? Getting someone like Alexis Sanchez out, that attitude, that perception that, you see, one of the things that's very difficult to scout is character. And some people grow into United shirts. Some people just can't ever deal with playing for his football club. And this is a guy playing for Barcelona. So you would imagine that he had experience of playing for a big club with big expectations. And this is what happens. Sanchez says he didn't know much about the move before he went. Well, maybe you should. Maybe money shouldn't have been the biggest factor. Maybe you want to learn a lesson because United need to learn one from this. United need to learn one from this. But maybe Alexis needs to learn one from this too, and realize that when you prioritize money over everything else, these are the types of things that happen. So we are finally seeing United move away from this, and they're right. Which brings me to my next point, Jadon Sancho. So obviously there's been a lot of commentary over Jadon Sancho. Will he go? Won't he? What's going to happen? What's the whole look? And there's various different reports on this. Some people say that personal terms have been agreed and it's just down to Manchester United and the club. I don't think that's true. From what I understand, that hasn't happened. And in fact, the agent wants an enormous amount of money, according to reports, and according to informed reports. The agent is really the reason why this deal is being held up. In fact, according to informed reports, United haven't even had a chance to negotiate the fee with Borussia Dortmund because the agent is the impediment. I believe that to be true. And if that's true, then Jadon Sancho has a decision to make. Jadon Sancho has to decide if he really wants this move. If he really wants this move, he's going to have to make it happen. And if it is true that it gets held up on the back of an agent, then Jadon Sancho is going to have to decide if he wants an agent to cost him this move to Manchester United. So, and I've criticised United and their spending. But forget to talk about Chelsea and Kai Havertz. They haven't even got that point yet with Borussia Dortmund. So I've criticised United and their spending. But this is an area where I wouldn't criticise them. Because if a player is willing to let a deal collapse over agent demands, then United are right to walk away, because this is exactly what will happen with Alexis Sanchez all over again. So, going to be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of weeks. I believe that if Jadon Sancho really wants this move, he'll get the move. He'll do the things necessary to make it happen. Kai Havertz really wanted this move to Chelsea. They did the things that needed to be done to make it happen. United want to sign him. They would really like him. But United only one part of this equation. There's other parts of this equation. They have to do their job too. So it's going to be really interesting to see what ends up happening. But in my view, if Jadon Sancho really wants to move to Manchester United, Jadon Sancho will get to move to Manchester United. If it doesn't happen, it'll be because Jadon Sancho doesn't want it enough. So we'll find out over the next couple of weeks where that's going to go. The ridiculous comment, of course, from Paul Merson that Van de Beek is a panic buy. I always wonder why United get criticised like this and nobody else. So Chelsea didn't make 5 panic buys? No. Why would a 23-year-old Ajax captain, one of the top midfielders in the world at his age, an area that United struggled in the first half of last season, be a panic buy for 35 million? It's insanity. Now, I like Merson. Merson's a good commentator. I like some of the stuff he says. I've dealt with Paul many times in the past. He's been a really, really nice guy, personally. But I couldn't disagree with him more. And over the years, this is one of the most pleasing signings I've seen at United. Been really, really pleased that they've showed shrewdness in the market and how they negotiated the fee and signed a player that actually makes sense, a player that complements United, a player that wasn't signed for shirt sales, a player that actually was a result of scouting. Absolute nonsense to say was a panic buy. But then, he said a lot of things with Harry Maguire last season, said a lot of things with Wan-Bissaka. Not necessarily disagreeing with everything that he said, but I understand that this is what makes news, and a lot of his colleagues have been sacked. So maybe Paul wants to make sure he stays in the news. I don't understand how a sacked Walsall manager can be turning around and determining whether Donny van de Beek is a panic buy. Other said, Gary Neville said Paul Pogba could be playing a deeper role this season. We will have to see how those midfield 3 fit of Van de Beek, Pogba and Bruno. Now, Pogba's been used in that role before. But from the way Gary Neville's describing it, it's going to be very different to the role that Mourinho asked him to play. Now, Mourinho asked him to play as a defensive midfielder. Paul Pogba cannot play a defensive midfielder. If you remember one of the games that he was asked to play a defensive midfielder, it was against Spurs away. United were 1-0 down after 25 seconds because Paul Pogba didn't track his run. And I felt sorry for him because that's not what Paul Pogba's strength is. You don't buy a Ferrari to be a bin lorry. So you can't ask Pogba to sit deep in a holding role. But if you're asking him to sit deep in a role like Thiago plays at Bayern Munich, where not necessarily a defensive midfielder or Jorginho at Chelsea that is there for the sole purpose of defending, but more for the purpose of connecting defence to midfield to attack. That is a problem. But also remember the Southampton game at Old Trafford, Pogba in that position got caught in possession and conceded a goal early on in the first 10 minutes. I'm not sure it's his best position, but in saying that, Matic is not the most technical player in the world. He's a very defensive-minded midfielder. They tried Fred in there. Fred has had some success, better success in Matic in connecting midfield to attack. So it'll be really, really interesting to see how he fits those midfield 3. If you haven't had a chance on the YouTube channel, there's an interview with Frans Hoek, who, of course, was Donny van de Beek's coach, and he also coached at United, Ajax, Bayern Munich, Barcelona, all that there. And he talks about how he thinks United will fit in that midfield. He will fit in that midfield 3. Other thing that's interesting is Scott McTominay playing at centre back tonight for Scotland. That's really, really interesting. Now, Tony with his size, you would imagine would be an advantage. Would be someone that at centre back would be someone that would be more than capable of filling in there. And we've seen this a lot at other clubs where they end up moving players from sometimes in defence and the centre back, defence, midfield, or midfielders back into defence. I don't think Tony has the pace to play there, but maybe an option next season as an emergency centre back. To me, the centre back position is the most important position that they need to address this summer, more than anything else. Right? And I want to see Sancho, and I want to see a left back, and it's encouraging that they're looking at left backs. But for me, the centre back is the most important position they have to address this summer, because if they get a right winger, and if say they got a left back, I still don't think they can challenge for the league without that centre back. But if they got a centre back and maybe skip the right winger until the January window or whatever, then I still think they would be all right. Because I think with Mason Greenwood out there, Daniel James, I know Daniel James is that type quality, but Gallo, there's still enough up there that you probably get through to January. But that centre back position is really, really important. When you got a right-footed centre back, his natural inclination is to come inside. I think it comes into traffic and gets caught a lot, which causes United a lot of attacks to stop before they even start. Maguire's not the quickest in the world, so balls over the top when you need to play a high line is a concern. So that is definitely something I want to see United address. They were linked, of course, with young Batshuayi at Monaco. Niko Kovac has come out and said that he will not be sold, but it's Monaco. So you really can't say that. And if United really want him, then I think he's very gettable. Of course, the other one is Upamecano. That would be a preference for me, and I think that'd be the preference for most people. So I think we needed a right in terms of the market is they're relaxed in the sense that they feel that they're close on a couple of deals that they can pull a trigger on quickly. The big one, of course, is Sancho. We've covered it. But the likes of Thiago, for example, Jan Lagerfjord saying that they talked about his wages being a stumbling block. If that's really the only reason why Thiago is not coming to Manchester United, then you have to question, is there a midfielder leaving? I would think there must be a midfielder leaving. Because there's just no way that, what is there, 7, 8 midfielders, it goes into 3, but if you want a defensive midfielder to play the way that Pogba plays, then yes, Thiago would be perfect for United. Some of the other things, people talking about United should sign Harry Kane. First of all, I wouldn't swap Anthony Martial for Harry Kane. Right? Anthony Martial on form, the form that he's in right now is a better player than Harry Kane. He's more complete. Harry Kane is a number 9 box player. Anthony Martial is an individual player that links well with the front 3, attacks channels, also links with the midfield, and is someone that has better individual quality than Harry Kane. Scored more goals than Harry Kane this season. I don't believe for 1 minute that United need to sign someone like Harry Kane. But I would relax on transfers. I know a lot of United fans want to see them get done. The club are working hard, and I think they'll get the signings done. I think by the end of this window, there'll be at least another 2 in. Let's hope Jadon Sancho gets done. Let's hope Jadon Sancho and his people, if reports really believed, that I believe from the people that reported this. I know people love Fabrizio Romano, and Fabrizio Romano is a magnificent journalist, one of the best in the world. What I said yesterday is everybody has to be given the opportunity to be wrong. And when you're getting information from agents, from all that types of people, you're only as good as the information they're given. And agents notoriously use people, journalists, to disseminate false information. So Fabrizio does a magnificent job. It's very, very difficult to be that connected over such a broad space. But it is possible that some of the information he's being given is deliberately wrong from the source. And that's not Fabrizio's fault, that's the source's fault. Fabrizio's job is to report that. But certainly there's a lot of contradiction about what the situation actually is with Sancho, but we shall see. Folks, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Thanks for following me on YouTube. We'll be doing tons more stuff on YouTube as well as all the other platforms. If you haven't subscribed to our podcast, go to BTP Media and on all the major podcast platforms, and you'll find it. We're going to have tons of guests and all that there, so we just started using this platform again. So thanks for following us. I hope you all have a very, very safe weekend. Take care, and thanks for everything, folks. See ya.